anyone who speaks French in this room can tell me which of these is full screen button?
That arrow is pointing out.
Oh, mode lecture, yes.
Okay. Sweet.
Okay, just over for the lightning talk speakers. When you have 1 minute left, I will hold up a card for 1 minute and then stop. We're aiming for about 5 minutes. You can go a little over, but we're going to try to make sure we get through all our lightning talks. I have a little bit of time afterwards for Q&A. So welcome to the technical lightning talks track. Our first presentation is by, where is it plugged into? Or I don't know what. I'm not sure about this if this works.
Okay, so how do we progress the slides?
There's
a switch probably.
Where'd you find this?
This one.
Oh, okay, I have no idea. We haven't used this equipment yet, so I think there's a keyboard here and a mouse.
All right. So we just page through, right?
Or page up and down, I think.
Page.
Right and left.
Okay, yeah, that works. Good.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so our first presentation is by Elton, Carr, and David Ormsbee. Elton's from Microsoft, and David is from edX. So take it away.
All right. If you currently run an edX system, some instance you have out there, you most probably have encountered the problem of MongoDB and its consumption of space on the disk. I understand this issue was raised in the edX forum some time back, and there was every intention to fix it because there is always an infrastructure cost associated with it. As it consumes more space, it costs you more to maintain. Here is a picture of what edX consumption looked like, and this is a graph over a year in terms of the growth of edX Mongo database, and you're basically seeing a doubling in the size of the database size between over a period of a year. Now, about a year ago, we had our BI team contact us because they're handling the backup of the Mongo database, and they grew concerned because the size of the thing kept increasing over time. So they notify us. Last year at the conference, we reached out to Fanil on the edX side and notified them about the issue, notified him about the issue, and he said, yes, it's a known issue, but we intend to fix it. Nobody was yet working on it, so what we did was we stepped up and we came up with an implementation. They accepted, edX accepted. We came up with the execution of that implementation, and we got that accepted as well, but it wasn't yet ready for production because it has some performance concerns. So over time, what we did was we worked with David as well. He stepped in, and he came in with a lot of performance improvements to come up with a solution that was production ready, and then that's what we have today. So David, it's all yours.
So talk a little bit about the solution that we have. So in the tubular repository now, there is a structures.py script. It has two commands. The first command is make plan. This will actually examine the MongoDB database, look at all the version content, like old course data that isn't necessary anymore, and mark what's safe to delete. It'll write that out to a separate plan file. This takes about 2 hours for 5 million documents. Microsoft had 136,000, took about 15 minutes. The second command is to actually execute the pruning and to run the deletes and updates in MongoDB. This takes longer. For edX's use case, for edX, it took us 8 hours. Microsoft took 1 hour to run the script on production. So of course, the versions that I showed there are really simplified invocations. To see our actual real-world usage with all the optional flags and how to install it, the first link is that. That's actually what we run on a weekly basis for edX.org to prune our database. And if you, the structures.py script itself has real. What? Oh. Hi.
It's just for YouTube. You're not gonna hear your voice.
Oh. Sorry. Structures.py itself has really helpful help text that will explain all the options. Okay, so safety issues. Before we get into this, it's not up here on the slide, but I'm going to assume at baseline everybody makes backups. Right, so just get that out of the way. The first prune is the hardest. It's going to be by far the most intensive. You're going to get rid of the most documents. It's the one you have to monitor and watch. You can run pruning without incurring downtime. You should test and prune on the staging environment using the batch size and the delay options. We've tried to do sane defaults. However, we run on pretty beefy hardware, so your mileage may vary. Pruning from old plan files is safe. So you can create a plan file 1 week, you can inspect it manually if you want to be sure that and be confident about it, and you can run it the next week and it'll be fine. You won't see the disk savings immediately because MongoDB pre-allocates slab files and it won't get rid of those slab files even if you delete the documents that are in it. So you need to actually sync up new instances of MongoDB to see the disk savings immediately. Make plan is read-only. You can run it as often as you want. The prune command can be interrupted and restarted. We actually had to do this on one of our 3 environments because MongoDB had a memory leak during the pruning process. We never quite figured out why. We had 3 almost identically provisioned environments with identical data, nearly identical data, and yeah, so just monitor that closely. But again, only on the first prune. So this was the impact. Microsoft cut their disk usage by 43%, edX.org by 69%. And yes, so no better time than the present. Please, it's working, it's production ready, you can use it. And also to kind of echo what Elton was saying, this sort of, this collaboration happened, this thing was delivered because Elton had a conversation with Finiel at last year's OpenEdX talk, OpenEdX conference. So please engage us, let's have more of these things.
And yes, we're going in the published order in the book. So we have Building a Future-Proof and Fully Modular React LMS Front-End by Matej. Yep. Ah.
I'm just trying the presentation. Thank you. Where are things here?
That button there.
Or this?
Yeah, that should work.
Cool. Hi everyone, my name is Matej and I'm here today to talk about some ideas of building a future-proof and fully modular React LMS frontend. So just a bit of background, I work at Assembler, I've been there for 3 years, I do UX UI design, I do front-end development, all around stuff, and I did some stuff for, let's say, our Tahoe SaaS offering, Team Engine, Figures, front-end, and whatnot. So let's shortly just talk about current OpenEdX front-end. So basically it's a beast. It's a large beast with a lot of parts that are moving, a lot of parts that are interconnected, and if you want to hack around it, you're probably going to break something, and if you want to customize something, you are probably going to break on upgrade. So it's not the easiest thing to figure out, and let's put aside the technical sides, but the problem that we have also is that it kind of discourages people from innovating, from hacking, from doing stuff, from contributing. So that is the main issue here. So there is, sunlight is kind of coming, and the separation of front end and back end is happening, as Ari said yesterday in a great talk. So basically what would happen, front end is a separate app, back end is completely separate, and they communicate via APIs. So what that means is a lot of flexibility. And what that also means is that you can create new apps that interact with OpenEdX. So that's basically what I decided to do like a couple of weeks ago, just to see what we can hack and just to see where we can start and build some kind of an architecture. So it provides a lower barrier of entry for new developers. It provides you with tools so you can actually experiment and implement new stuff and contribute back. Another thing is, yeah, you have all this fancy stuff and fancy UI that you can use now in modern web, and you have the other cool stuff that modern frameworks allow you, like hot reloading, custom routing, and a bunch of other super cool things. So why React? I decided to go with React because of its modularity, because after all, OpenEdX is moving that way as well, and because it really should be a very good platform to build things on. So the architecture itself would be something similar to like this. So Redux would hold the general application states. meaning authentication, meaning user data, meaning maybe some platform information. It would communicate with the views and the components that are inside, and all of those are reusable, which is awesome. And the views themselves or even components can then, if they need to, interact on the side with the API to retrieve more stuff. Now, another cool thing that we can have, and that I kind of went here with, was using CSS modules, or better yet, SAS modules. So essentially, your classes and your components get hashed, hash prefixes, meaning when you submit a new component and its own SAS, you do not affect other components that are already in the system. So no more of that, overriding each other's work and stuff like that. But what we can also have is a central, basically SAS UX library, which you can include, which is aliased, so you don't need like relative paths to do that. It's all very, very organized, structured, and documented. And basically, your component can use mix-ins that already exist, that are already in the framework. So essentially, you can create new components very fast, and they would blend in beautifully. But how do we theme these things? So how do we dress it up in some other way? Essentially, by looking at Webpack and by looking what can be done there, we can use what we had. We can use comprehensive theming. So one essentially, to say it more simply, one folder has the core components, has all the core code, and another folder is a theme folder. And essentially what Webpack does when it resolves imports, it essentially looks in the theme. If it isn't in the theme, it will import from the core. So essentially you can override anything. You can override SAS, you can override JS, you can override views, you can even override the router itself if you need to. So it's a great thing. It allows you very much flexibility, but it still deters you from breaking stuff. So just as a resume of what we can do to right now. So we should probably start basically hacking. That's basically what I did. Essentially, maybe get our hands dirty, maybe dive a bit into backend, hack some views, get some data. And so this is actually like a screen grab of an actual app that runs, that gets data from an edX dev stack. So we can even get the navigation and whatnot and the course contents. So I think it's time to start hacking and start figuring what we exactly need. So for example, how do we want the APIs to return the data? This very primitive approach returns basically the data the same way current templates do, with all of the divs and whatnots and everything, and that's not good. My personal proposal would probably be to go structured. So basically, you get block identifiers, use components as you should, that should render those block identifiers, and just give them the data and the callback functions, which would allow awesome stuff for native mobile, UX, UI, and whatnot. So this will soon be on GitHub. It was just finished like last night. But I will post it in the OpenEdX Slack in front end. And I would also love for anybody who's interested just to approach, talk about this, see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Fonzie, an open API for OpenEdX by Julien. Maupetit. Sorry, I'm not good at pronouncing certain things. My apologies. All right. You've got your slides here.
Thank you. All right, it's a bit. Okay. So let's talk about Fonzie, an open API for OpenEdX. I want a little disclaimer about this presentation. Fonzie is a work in progress, so don't expect too much for now, but you will know why we wanted to introduce this at this point. Second, important information, I'm at Fun since 4 months, so maybe I will do some mistakes or some simplifications about OpenEdX, but you will tell me where I'm wrong, and we'll come to discuss about this. I cannot pass the slides. Where? All right. So for this presentation, I will start to introduce what is Fonzie and why we needed it at Fun. We need it at Fun, and the second and third point, we'll talk about the project itself, how it was conceived, and for us, because first it was more like a proof of concept of how can we improve the developer experience to develop a third-party app for OpenEdX. And the last, but not the least, most important point of this presentation is that this project should be community-driven. We've talked about this yesterday, and we want to be part of this community, and we want to share our thoughts about it. So the what and why. As you may have expected, Fonzie is a generalist REST API for OpenEdX objects. That's the first start. Maybe we can introduce more custom routes and logic in this API. But for now, just being able to access to all the objects that are in OpenEdX would be a strong improvement. We are, like Matej presented, we all need APIs to have access to data because we want to build dashboards, back office, and more generally new interfaces to show to look up the data that are stored in OpenEdX. So we built it like a proof of concept of a third-party app developed with Docker. I'm not sure everyone is familiar with Docker, but the main idea is from the day one we create a project, we have a Docker file at the root of the repository. We have a Docker Compose file also, and a continuous integration platform. And so the idea is that from day one, the app is conceived as a container that can be in a different flavor for development purpose because we need to test our application, and that will be orchestrated with Docker Compose. And the most important thing is that this container will be automatically built by our continuous integration platform. And this container can be reused elsewhere. After that, it can be tested directly from the continuous integration platform and maybe deployed with Arnold, our project that we use to deploy all our applications. So our Docker file, what does it look like? Okay. So if you're not used to read the Docker file, this first instruction means that we inherit from an image that we have built at Fun that is based on the Ginkgo release. The first thing we do is to copy the settings from our settings to run the applications, the URLs of the applications, and then we copy the content of Fonzie, and we install the requirements of the Fonzie. And this, it works. It works on your machine, and hopefully it will work everywhere you can run the container. For development purpose, we use Docker Compose to have an equivalent of the dev stack. It means that we have the LMS that is based on the image that I've just showed you, the Docker image I've just showed you, where we and we depend on other services that are required for the LMS. And the only thing that the developer has to do when it comes to the project is to run this command, Docker Compose up, to up the development stack and start working with Fonzie. So, as I said before, the first thing that we need to do for this application is to write a specification for our API. Why is it so important? It's because it smooths the development around the application. Because if you specify your API, the backend developers and the front-end developers can start working together at the same time without waiting an implementation of the API. Because there are some tooling that goes around the specification that can automate the implementation of and the test of the API and provide mock servers for front-end developers. One of those is API Blueprint. This is one proposal. I like this format, but Yeah, there are many other solutions that we can provide. I like the fact that for API Blueprint, there is a lot of tools that are gravitating around this solution. The specification looks like a markdown-like format. You can give the endpoint, the HTTP verbs you want to use, precise the headers that are expected, and provide some example of response that you may expect. This file is the only thing that is required to start working from front and back and automate testing of the implementation of the API. As I've said before, almost no endpoint have been implemented yet, because I think it's important that the community choose and define the priorities that we need to work on, and we want to have a collaborative approach with GitHub, and we want people to make proposals like issues or even pull requests for this specification to define the priorities and implement them as they are accepted by the community, start to implement the API, the endpoint of the API to incrementally make the API grow. You can watch the repository Fonzie to have an idea of what it looks like now. And one more thing is that maybe this community-driven approach shouldn't be under the umbrella of OpenFun, but maybe something like Friends of OpenEdX or something like this, if OpenEdX is okay with this, to ease the interaction between the different people that want to be part of this project. So thank you. You can find us on GitHub. We are OpenFun, and recently on Twitter also. And you can send us an email if you want. Thank you.
Thank you, Julien. And next we have Keeping Up with OpenEdX Releases While Maintaining Dinosaur Browser Support by Bryan Wilson.
My topic migrated a little bit since the proposal, but it's same technology.
Okay. Well, here's your presentation. Right arrow and left arrow to move between slides. Right.
Okay, hi. I'm Bryan Wilson. I am a developer, glorified typist at AppSembler. And yeah, I'll be talking about using a technology called Diazo to use one theme for potentially multiple OpenEdX services. Right arrow. Yeah, I'm using it. Okay, I'm good. Okay, so you might be thinking, wait, another theming technology, and what is Diazo? Well, so first of all, I'm not seeing this as a replacement for existing efforts in theming, but maybe an addition and something that can solve perhaps some use cases that some of you may be facing. So like I said, it's a way to apply some common theme elements or theme across LMS, Studio. You might be using e-commerce, analytics, dashboard, and possibly even some other non-OpenEdX web or parts of your web presence. And so the theme can be from an existing front end that you have, or just part of an existing front end that you have. Even like an off-the-shelf bootstrap theme that you could download, or also in this, it's a potentially good solution where you have a theme that's not really under the control of your team that works on OpenEdX. So this right here is actually, except for the Diazo part, a completely unthemed Ginkgo LMS. And what I've done is I've just pulled in over the web, which I wouldn't recommend for production use, the AppSembler, the index.html page at appsembler.com, and I've just taken the header and footer from it and put the LMS inside of it. So what Diazo does to accomplish this is it has themes. You have your OpenEdX content from whichever service you're using, and then you have rules in a rules file. And these can be combined to create final output that your users see. So let's take a look. Here is a lovely bootstrap theme that I got off the web for 15 bucks, Learn EDU. And let's say this is this is the look for your organization, but you want to, you need to have have your OpenEdX sites look like this, or parts of it. But of course, you don't want this like huge hero image on every page. So you have your LMS. What Diazo is some WSGI middleware that runs a technology called XSLT to transform the actual XML type output from your other systems and creates the final XML, or HTML, excuse me. So you have a rules.xml file that's in your Django Diazo theme. So you reference index.html, or that can be any URL really, and then you add some rules. Rules are things like simple verbs, like drop, replace, before, after, merge. So it's going to be something like drop these parts of the theme, like just get rid of these elements, or replace these parts of the theme, these elements, with these other specific elements from your OpenEdX service. You can also merge things, like you can say, well, I want all the CSS classes from my theme and from the content. So here's a real example. You're using CSS type selectors. You're pointing at your theme, and then you also have the CSS content, and you're saying this is where we're going to take what's coming out of the LMS and put it and replace what's in the theme HTML file at that location. There's some tools. This one's called Theme Mapper that kind of show you on the left here. You've got your basic site. On the right, you've got your default, and it kind of helps you choose elements and generate some rules that you put in your XML file. So here's an example. So this shows header, footer from the theme pretty much, and then I've taken like the user nav and some elements of the original theme nav and some elements from the LMS nav, and I've combined them into a new nav, and of course there we have a dashboard view. Same rules XML file, same theme, a few different conditionally placed rules, and it's working for Studio as well. So yeah, you can do different things depending on whether you find a class that indicates that you're in the LMS or edX Commerce or what have you. You can change the rules or the actual theme. So the way this works is in your WSGI.py files for LMS, CMS, or what have you, you just sort of rewrap your application with this Diazo middleware wrapper. So this happens once you have added some additional apps. There's Django Diazo themes, and then you also reference your specific theme package. You collect static assets, and your theme static files get put into your static URLs for LMS and CMS. There's a command called sync themes and so this creates the actual theme here. There's this Grey Grizz Learn EDU Bootstrap 4 theme. So that enables it. So I think this has got some good possibilities. Some other places this might go is instead of actually running it within Django, you can actually use Diazo to export a compiled XSL file and serve it with Nginx, say. If there's interest, I think it would be interesting to provide some sort of template rules.xml files for OpenEdX services that kind of have the selectors for common parts of the CMS, LMS, e-commerce that you might want to use. We could look at providing the ability to just upload themes, more like a WordPress type approach. And then Matej kind of mentioned this as well. Like one of the issues is that you may have some kind of a namespace collision with your CSS classes. I did run into that. There's, especially with Bootstrap classes, like there are classes in OpenEdX like .progress, which are also used in Bootstrap, but that may go away. Anyway, those are some areas that I'd be interested in looking at. And if you are interested, you get a hold of me. I'm in Slack, or that's my email. And then I can put this slides up on the web with some of our forks and some examples. There's docs on Diazo. There's docs on that theme mapper tool that I showed. And thanks to the Plone community that created Diazo, this Goldman Wildebeest Wunderlieb created Django Diazo and the edX community. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bryan. And next we have Microsoft LAAS, or LAAS boarding cases by Sergiy and Peter. Okay, just Peter.
Where's the clicker or?
Yeah, left and right arrow on the keyboard here.
Okay, thank you. So guys, it will be the most technical talk here. I don't know how it appeared here, but let's do it. Yesterday it was a great talk for Microsoft guys who like describe what Microsoft LAAS program does and who it can benefit. So today I just don't wanna like talk about this way like it was in Microsoft. I wanna tell how we as a learner integrator can, as Open edX integrator, can benefit our clients, potential clients. So just a short recap. What Microsoft offers. It offers like 140 plus courses from different aspects, starting with deep learning and ending with some kind of Excel stuff. So for a whole bunch of people, it can be useful. Learner partners can use it for individual learners and for the corporate learners. And the main stuff is that they can add some valuable things like localization, like custom materials, like blended learning, or even like tutoring, offline tutoring. That is how they can earn more and more money. So what are the learner partners? It is organizations, thousands of them across the globe. Most of them are really small and don't provide anything except offline learning. So with offering LAAS program, we move them to online learning, which is great. And everybody wants to grow their businesses. So the easy part, as a learner integrator, we get Azure access of this learner partner, set up on the Open edX, provide a Microsoft onboarding, upload courses, and there comes the tricky part because it is a development and now we start business. And business means that we need to support our partner. We need to track other enrollments go high or low. Are there students are just enroll in courses or do they really learn the material and get the certificates? That is why I want like every Open edX provider who wants or who is already using this opportunity to work with Microsoft to track those numbers and to help learning partners who might not be so sophisticated in such things. So numbers are really, really important. Track enrollment, track the course. For instance, you can track either their, you can see in this module there was 1,500 students get in and only 500 get out. So there are almost 1,000 students stuck. That is why you need to tell your learning partner that he needs to adjust the course because like 2/3 of people doesn't understand it and doesn't go with it. And to use Microsoft Power BI, which is a really cool tool, works with Open edX and works with Azure and provides a whole bunch of data regarding the students because previous information was provided for the course. Probably that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Now we have one last presentation by David Ormsbee. If you'd come up, or you have slides for that, right?
Hi, okay, so this was a last minute, like I literally threw this together in 5 minutes this morning, addition because when I was talking to people at breakfast, I realized that we at edX have done a really horrible job of advertising something that our support team uses all the time. So it's called Course Graph, and the pain points that we had as edX, the organization, is I'm sure one that many of you have faced, in that you want to query course content on a broad way across all your courses. You want to see who's using what features, what things can you deprecate. You want to see, like, what things should you prioritize for bug fixes. Say two particular X blocks interact in a weird way and cause a bug if they're together in the same sequence. Like, how often does that actually happen, etc. So yeah, here's some example of queries. What courses use this X block, proctored exams, assignments, all those things. So what Course Graph is extremely bare bones. There's a management command that's been in the edX platform for a while. It's called dump to neo4j. And it just dumps all the module stored data into a Neo4j graph database. I included some links to where you can actually have sample queries and a bunch of other information on Course Graph. We've got dozens of very common queries that our teams have added over time. And yeah, so if you have questions, talk to me. If they are technical questions, query and usage questions, talk to Jennifer Akana, who is wandering around at this conference. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So we have time for a few questions until we're supposed to end at 2:10, so we've got about 8 minutes. So if anyone has any questions, raise your hand and we'll have whichever presenter you want to ask a question of answer it. Any questions? Yeah.
That's pretty clear. So what you showed, is any of in particular the progress funnel, is the progress funnel chart something that's open sourced?
Yeah, it will be, and I think you can find it already in GitHub. It was like our lightweight analytics. We knew about your subsender and OpenCraft thing like a way too long, and that we started the development. We felt like, okay, we'll finish, and then probably either we go together, or you will just contribute to open source, to open edX, and we will be like, our application will be like a side. But the funnel is really, really cool. So it shows how many people stuck, and it is really useful in terms of our customers' perspective. They use it a lot.
Yeah. Actually, I realized, can I have all the speakers come up towards the front so it's easier to get the microphone around the room? Or are there any more questions? No. Yep.
Yeah, so what Bryan forgot to mention on this talk is that the original use case for using Diazo was that we had a customer who works in the health industry, medical, and so the audience were like doctors and nurses who were on ancient IE browsers, like, was it IE 6 or 9? Okay, 9. That's not that ancient, but still pretty old. It's been deprecated. So if you just load up edX like out of the box on IE 9, it doesn't look good, and they needed to support edX on these older browsers. So that was the main driving force for why you started investigating Diazo. Is that right?
To just kind of take a big axe to stuff that's not working, instead of like trying to really fine-grain theme the LMS, just sort of remove and replace with a simpler version. But yeah, I started down that route, and then they decided to keep that portion of their business on Dogwood for now. So that's why I switched gears a bit in terms of what I was demoing here.
Thank you very much. We have still another 5 minutes if there are any more questions, or you guys have some time back. Yes? You can just ask your questions too far.
Yeah, so the API that currently does it is essentially a hacked view that actually returns, in normal case, it normally renders that data to a template when you're in courseware. So what we essentially did, we just copied that view into our separate Django app. So it's gonna be there in GitHub as well. And just hacked around it just to kind of structure the data a bit more, just to get, as much structured as possible. So yeah, that's pretty, like, it's hacky and that's it. But realistically, yeah, we're gonna need to kind of find a better way there, absolutely. But also my personal opinion is we need to first discuss how exactly we want to render the data. Right now, Xblocks render, like Xblocks hold all the control basically, and they just inject their stuff. That's not very good for many reasons. So maybe we can have like 2 tracks. One is the old one, the other is just please return me the JSON. Or yeah, that's one discussion that definitely should be made. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? All right, well, I think that was a good set of lightning talks. Another round of applause for our speakers, please. And you're dismissed early. You can go get some snacks or something. No, I'm actually someone else. I'm assigned to Granby.
Okay, another person is gonna.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. No, Mike. Copy here. Yeah, I know. It's in 10 minutes. Yeah.
Un, deux, test. Un. Un, deux, test. Un, deux, test. Un, deux, test. Un, deux, test. Can I pinch your shirt?
Yeah, sure. What were the last 3 digits of your credit card number again? So you guys are the next talk, that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's more about a Tahoe setup you guys have, or just experiences on it? Or?
No, it's more general about multi-tenancy. I mean, we are going to mention a couple of things that we did, but it's more general about, what we have already, what do we did, what do we are planning to contribute, and what are the challenges that we have ahead. You're Satish? Hey, it's nice to meet you in person. So yeah, it's basically about, we are going to mention a little thing that we did about Tahoe, but we are not going to go too deep into that. It's not like walk you through code or something. We're going to mention some examples of code, but no, it's like high level, mostly to talk about the problem.
This conversation with another provider as well who has similar, so maybe I'll just stay for this one. Are you operating the camera? No, I'm not. Okay, man.
Okay. No, thank you.
Okay. Would you like me to sit somewhere else? No. So is over there okay?
Yes, it's perfect. So you can put it in your pocket or
Sure.
So I'll get your attention when there's 10 minutes left.
Okay, perfect.
Just to make sure you're good.
Okay, thank you.
If you need anything.
Thank you.
As I repeat myself, the camera plan, they start like at the TV on this side and they go till over here.
Okay.
It's okay?
Perfect. Yeah, I'm gonna try this setup. Hey.
From edX, so
Yeah.
I'm going to be helping with these.
You're gonna get my address.
Time cards?
Yes.
Oh, I'll do that. Jennifer, were you supposed to? Someone sent me here to do this.
Oh, really? Okay.
But you can do it if you want to. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never done it before.
I think there's just the time frame.
Yeah.
Do you want to do this?
Unless you want to. I don't want to rain on your parade. You're good? Okay.
I will just, yeah.
Okay. Do you know how can I'm mirroring the screen with the screen, so I want to try to set up a different.
Your screen looks good. I don't think you don't.
No, but I'm seeing the same here than there. I'm mirroring. I want to have like separate monitors. If I don't know if I can.
Oh no, I don't think so.
Because I think in this way I lose the speaker notes.
Why? Because you have presenter notes, or?
I have some.
No, I had the same problem. I presented here. Yeah.
So I cannot.
Same setup. Yeah, Mac with a.
So. Okay, so I cannot separate the speaker notes.
No. Yeah,
Okay.
this is your problem. It's,
The HDMI cable.
With this, it's either. Yeah. You're doing the only thing you can.
Okay, perfect.
That's a huge bummer. I had a lot of notes for my presentation.
I will do my best then. So, this is still starting 5 minutes, so let's wait.
Yeah. More than 5 minutes.
Okay.
No, actually 5. Yeah.
5 minutes. Hey, I did it.
Huh?
I did it.
What'd you do? How'd you do that?
I turned off the show mirroring options. I had this option enabled by default. I had, wait a sec. I had this option and I just deselected it. So I think now I can have like, yeah, I can have like this, yeah.
Where are you from, Mexico?
Uruguay.
Uruguay.
Yeah, you?
Oh, cool. Mexico.
Yeah.
Estado de Oaxaca.
Hablas español entonces.
Por supuesto.
Yo también. Gracias.
Uruguay, hay muchos uruguayanos en donde vivo.
¿Sí? ¿En México?
Estoy en Puerto Escondido, son surfistas.
Mira.
Vienen para la temporada, están como 5 meses.
Claro.
Pero van llegando actualmente.
Yo tengo muchos conocidos que viven en DF.
También.
Que conozco por lo menos 5 sociólogos que viven en DF y trabajan ahí en DF. En la facultad.
Y varios otros. O sea, un buen restaurante.
Sí.
Tu comida es muy popular en DF.
¿La comida uruguaya?
Bastante.
Asado.
Claro.
Y el chivito.
Y de Argentina, obvio.
Claro, Argentina también, sí. Los argentinos son más.
Bueno, te dejo paso.
Estamos en hora, creo. No, faltan un par de minutos. need to wait 4 minutes. 3 minutes. I think YouTube people can already listen to me about this from here. Oh, I cannot speak too much.
Hey. 90-second countdown.
How are you doing? Everything fine? ¿Cómo era tu nombre? Ya me olvidé.
¿Mandé?
Tu nombre ya me lo olvidé. Lawrence.
Lorenzo.
Lawrence. Okay, perfecto.
Vamos a empezar como la máquina de la...
Or is he doing it? I'm doing it. Okay. All right. That was a mix-up. You were supposed to be in a different room, but you're doing it now. It's okay. We got it covered.
Okay, I'm pleased to present Maxi Fernandez from Similar, who's talking about multi-tenant OpenNX.
Okay. Thanks, Lawrence. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. So, yeah, today let's going to talk about the challenge of multi-tenant in OpenEDX. So, let me introduce myself. My name is Maxi Fernandez. I am from Montevideo, Uruguay. I'm located there. I'm a software engineer at Assembler. I've been working with Assembler for the last 2 years, and my journey with OpenEDX started 3 years ago. First, I started working in a new public university in Uruguay, and we deployed edX there because in that new university, one of the goals was to deliver online education, and then I joined Assembler until today. So, okay, let me talk briefly about Assembler. In Assembler, we are 20 people in the organization. We are 13 engineers, and we are a distributed first team, and we are all around the globe in different time zones, and we work as a distributed team. So in the recent months, I joined to the team that is in charge of the deploying of the development and deploying of Tahoe. That is the Assembler SaaS cloud-based platform. You can try it if you want, the assembler.com/Tahoe. And basically, it's a cloud-based and multi-tenant OpenEDX architecture. So that's the starting point for this talk. I mean, the goals of the talk is, first of all, to understand what multi-tenancy it is, to learn what we have available for multi-tenancy in OpenEDX these days, and to learn what we cannot do yet in OpenEDX for multi-tenancy, Then let's go to see some examples about some. We are not going to go too much deep into that, but let's see some examples about how we push it forward multi-tenancy in the OpenEdX platform. And then we will see what are the challenges that we have ahead for multi-tenancy in OpenEdX. So, okay, first, what is multi-tenancy? Multi-tenancy, the term refers to a software architecture in which a single instance of software runs or serves different tenants. So tenants are isolated organizations, but they share the same architecture, the same application code, and they share the same database, but each one is private or isolated from the other one. So multi-tenancy, the first difference is it contrasts with multi-instance. So because we have the same architecture, the same instance, it's a single instance running the software. And multi-tenancy also contrasts with virtualization. What are the benefits of multi-tenancy? One of the first benefits is lower than the cost for infrastructure. Then, from the application code standpoint, is the same code is shared by all tenants, and that makes really easy, for example, upgrades and the release of new features and bug fixing. I mean, probably for many OpenEdX vendors or organizations that handle different installations of OpenEdX, do you know about the hassle on upgrades and when we need to develop, deploy bug fixings or new features? I mean, we need to do some repetitive work several times on basically different infrastructures that are running the same code. So what are the use cases for multi-tenancy? For example, we have the case, in the case of OpenEdX specifically, we have, for example, universities that they can have like different departments or different campuses inside the same university or the same organization. So many times they want to offer like different branding for the different departments. They want to display in the course catalog different set of courses, and they don't want to, for example, they may also want to use like different subdomains for each department, and maybe they don't want to show all the list of courses for the whole university on each different department. I mean, we want to just show the courses that are applied to that specific department. Another use case is, for example, companies who want to serve partners. Probably it's the same case. For different partners, we want to provide different branding, different theming, different domains, or different subdomains, and completely different set of courses for those partners. Also, we have the case of companies who want to resell OpenEdX courses. And, well, lastly, that is our case, and probably the case of other OpenEdX vendor. We want to offer OpenEdX in a cloud SaaS architecture. So when we talk about a SaaS architecture for OpenEdX, that involves other use cases, like, for example, the permissions structure in the platform, the access to APIs, the access to the administration, not only to the branding, domain, and course catalog. But we are going to see this in the next slides. So let's go to tackle the first goal of the talk, that is to see in which parts or components of the OpenEdX platform we can rely today for multi-tenancy. At the moment in OpenEdX, we don't have a full multi-tenancy. We cannot achieve completely isolated tenants inside the same OpenEdX installation, but we have some components available, for example, to have different subdomains, to have different brandings, to have different sets of courses. So these are the components that we have these days. We have OpenEdX sites, we have site configurations, we have site theming, configuration helpers, and edX organization. Those are the things that we are going to cover in the next slides and talk a little bit about it in the high level of the configuration. For example, OpenEdX sites. OpenEdX site basically is built on the Django sites frameworks. And the good thing about the OpenEdX sites is it can be managed mostly entirely from the Django admin. So this consists in more than one piece, but we are going to cover them. So the first thing, how to add a site in OpenEdX from the Django admin is pretty simple. We just need to set a domain name and the display name, and obviously we need to point that domain to our OpenEdX instance IP. It could be a load balancer or a server but yeah, basically we need to point that domain or subdomain. The benefit of OpenEdX sites is after we set up the domain, Django with the middleware, with the sites middleware, is going to handle the request, and it's going to basically display the branding and theming and what we want from the site, and Django is going to take care of that part of the logic. So the next piece that we have here is the site configuration. Basically, the site configuration is a model that we can manage from the Django admin that basically we have a reference to our site, we need to just enable it, and in the values field we can basically override different values that the default values are going to be stored in the lms.m.json file that probably if there are some OpenEdX developers here are familiar with that file. Basically, the lms.m.json file is a file that stores the majority of the OpenEdX configurations. So with this model that we have in the platform, basically we can override some of the values. For example, the platform name, the site name, if we want to use a combined login registration or not, we can control that per site. In the documentation of OpenEdX sites, there is the full list of values that we can override from here. But there is one important one, that is the course org filter. This is the value that allows us to filter our course catalog and only display the courses that have that organization set in the course key, basically. So that's probably the most important value that we have in the site configuration management, because it allows us to filter our course catalog per site. And then we have the site theming. In this model is very simple as well. I mean, we have a reference to our site, and then we need to enter the directory in our server in where we are overwriting the specific theme for that site. If we don't provide this, we are going to use the default theming on that site, but we can have one specific custom theme per site in our installation. So let's go to talk really brief about OpenEdX edX organizations. edX organization is a Django application that is installed by default in OpenEdX platform that today is pretty simple, but basically it's a Django application responsible for managing the concept of organizations in the OpenEdX platform. Basically, organization represents some entities that are responsible for the creation and the publishing of courses. And if you check the repository, one of the future goals of this application is probably include things such as related learners to the organization. That is something that we are going to achieve, so we are going to see that in a little bit. Then what I want to mention is the configuration helpers. Configuration helpers is basically a Python file inside site configuration. It's a helper that is really useful when we are like writing code or creating new features or extending the platform, because the standard way to retrieve a setting in Django in OpenEdX is basically import from Django.conf import settings and just call the setting that is usually stored in the command.py, or maybe it's overridden by us in the lms.m.json file. But if we are using sites, what we have available is the configuration helpers that we can import it, and this allows us to use the getValue function that basically, if we are calling a specific setting with the getValue, we can. GetValue is going to, first, is going to check the site values that we saw in the previous slides in the Django admin, and if we have the value defined, it's going to return the value that we have defined in the site. And if not, we can set the value that we have by default in the platform, and it's going to return the default. But this is really useful. We are basically developing any new feature, or even if we are writing the theming for the site, this is the way to get values in a site-aware way. So now we are going to see a couple of examples of how we extended the platform to try to provide a more multi-tenant approach and isolate like different tenants inside the same architecture. So the first customizations that we did were in the edX organizations Django application. Basically, we went a couple of steps forward, and the first thing that we introduced is user organization mapping. Basically, we are relating learners or users to the organization and the site. And also, we work with Django authentication backends. We wrote some custom backends there. So basically, in the authentication process in Django, we can check if the user belongs to the site or not. And basically, we only let to login users that belongs to that particular site / organization. So yeah, I mean, it's an approach to multi-tenancy in that way. And the other thing that we have is also a middleware that allows us to have all the time the site in the request, so we can do like many checks and work with it. Then we also have some customizations in Studio, because Studio is maybe less microsite aware than the LMS, because, for example, OpenEDX sites doesn't work in Studio. In Studio, we only have one URL to access there, and if we have a user with global staff permissions, that user is going to see every course that we have in Studio. So that basically, that is not multi-tenancy at all. So we did a couple of customizations in Studio. For example, since we have the users related with the sites and the organizations, one thing that we do is when a user is trying to create a course, we remove the option to set the organization. We hardcode the organization because we know the organization that the user belongs. So we only let the user to basically set the course name, the course number, and the course run. Then hardcoding the organization for the course, we can filter only the courses for that specific user. I mean, we filter the courses by the organization that the user belongs. So in this way, we offer a multi-tenancy approach in Studio as well. So back to the current state of the platform. Important to mention, the last thing that we saw in the past slides are customizations that we have in our platform. I mean, the code is public, you can check it, but we are, I mean, it's part of the goal of this talk. We are trying to see how to contribute that how to create an open source contribution basically for multi-tenancy in OpenEDX. We still have some work to do there. We have some specific things that we need to remove, but the idea is open the conversation and see what are the other use cases for other vendors or for other organizations that are using OpenEDX, and see how we can start contributing back that code to and create some upstream PRs. So let's talk about really quick about what are the challenges that we have ahead for multi-tenancy. Today, in the platform, one problem that we have that even if we are using sites, when a user is registered on the platform, that user basically can access to any site in the platform. There is no restriction on that, so basically we are not isolating users in different sites or in different tenants or nothing similar. But if we talk about user registration per site, we are also pushing maybe the Django limits in that way, because if we have a multi-tenant architecture and we want to have like different users registered on different sites inside the same multi-tenant system, basically we need to start to talk about other things like multiple profiles for that user, different enrollments per site for that user. I mean, a user that access to one particular site, we will see a set of courses that is enrolled, and if the user access to other site, it's necessary to see only the courses that is enrolled in the second site. So that's one of the challenge of the user registration and management. Well, and related to this is the permission structure. We have in Django and in OpenEDX, we have a pretty basic structure, permissions structure. So basically, we have super users and staff users. So super user basically can modify and see everything in an OpenEDX instance. So if we are talking about multi-tenancy and isolated tenants inside the same installation, we need to talk about also about super users, I mean, per site or per tenant super users. I mean, a user that can modify and see everything inside the organization or the tenant, but not in other tenants. I mean, the organizations or tenant needs to be private inside the architecture. And related to this is APIs. When we talk about the APIs, for example, let's take, for example, the bulk enrollment API. That's an endpoint that allows us to enroll multiple users in multiple courses with one call to the API. So in that case, we need to talk about also users per site, and we need to talk about the permissions structure, because the user accessing to the API needs to only be able to modify and see information for that particular microsite. So some takeaways from the talk. One is we learn what we do, what do we have available today in the platform. Basically, if we want to start like approaching to multi-tenancy, what we have is OpenEDX sites, and we have also edX organizations. We also saw what we cannot achieve today yet, that is to have separate user accounts per site organization, and we don't have a native way in the platform to partitioning courses per organization in a studio. But basically, like we said before, please join the conversation. I mean, part of the goal of this talk is to start the conversation in the community with, we know that there are other efforts, so we created yesterday a new channel in the OpenEDX Slack that is multi-tenancy, and we would love to start discussing about this and any idea that you have. And I think it could be like a nice effort to do in the community together. So thanks, and if you have any question, we have some time. Thanks.
We have about 15 minutes for questions.
Yeah, went fast. Sure.
Do you actually use multi-tenancy currently?
Yeah, the examples that we shown, I mean, yeah, we are trying to move in that direction.
Real customers? Like real customers?
Yeah. Tahoe is currently in production, yeah, and real customers are using it.
And so what about the users that can see all the courses? How did you address that?
Yeah, like you mean in a studio?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we saw in the example. I mean, we are currently filtering the courses for users. So yeah, in a studio we are respecting the multi-tenancy for different organizations. I mean, a staff user in one organization is only going to see the courses for that organization and nothing else. Yeah.
How are you mapping the user for that organization today? It's a manual, or are you using anything behind the screen for the organization for the user mapping?
You mean how we create the mapping? Yeah, the model that links the user is an edX organization, links users with sites and organizations. And we create user via API, so in that process is where we link the organization and site with the user. Thanks.
So when a user does register and sign up,
Hmm?
when a user registers and signs up, do you manually, how do you set the site and organization at that point?
How we set that? Yeah, I mean, our platform Tahoe, basically, we have the LMS studio and we have the management console that is a React application. And basically, when you sign up in Tahoe, and when a user is registering in the LMS, like we saw before, we have a middleware that returns us the site all the time. So in the registration process, we can basically map the user to the organization in the registration process. Sure.
Are you seeing the need for reusing courses? So have a course and multiple multi-sites, would that be possible? Or
You mean?
Have the same course on multiple microsites?
You mean to use the same install of the course, or maybe use course reruns to have like a catalog course that we can replicate in different sites?
Anyway, basically have the same content for multiple microsites. I don't know what the best way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we think about as a feature to have, like, for example, a course catalog that you can choose some kind of course. And that's the case, for example, for people who want to resell course in different organizations. We think about that future feature that maybe you can have like a base course catalog and you can replicate those courses in different sites. But I think we need to think always about different courses, because if you're running the same course in different organizations, you are going to start sharing data and learning progress in different sites, and you are losing the isolation there between sites.
The component library as well inside Studio?
Sorry?
The component library inside Studio, is that shared across tenants?
No, we filter that as well because it has organization.
So, quick question.
Sure.
For the multi-tenancy you guys have, do you give access to Studio as well? You can log in and does a user have the access to import their course and do everything else?
Yeah.
You guys manage that?
No, the user manages that.
Okay. Because you mentioned an option where you remove the organization field once the course is being created.
Yeah.
And if the user's organization doesn't match the organization for the course, how do you handle that? Let's say the user is not the one who's originating the course.
Yeah.
Right? So the organization for the course is actually different. Well, I guess we kind of use the word organization and publisher differently, right? But
yeah.
You take a course from somebody, let's say Colombia or somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
You put it into your instance, you remove the organization, that means you're going to reassociate the course with whatever organization this tenant has on your platform.
Yeah, but I mean, if I understand the question, I mean, when you import a course, you first need to create the course in a studio. So you need to reset the organization. So in that point, we don't let the user to set the organization. So you are going to import the course content, but the course key is going to be different. Because, I mean, every time you import a course, you first need to create the course, actually. I don't know if I'm explaining. Yeah. Yeah, before import the content, you need to create the course from the UI. So at that point, I mean, you have a new course. I mean, with the same content as the previous one, but it's a new entity. I mean, makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that part, right?
Yeah.
About importing the course and bringing it in, right?
Yeah.
But if there is a requirement to have the course under the organization of the publisher, right, versus the tenant. In this case, you I'm coming as a tenant,
yeah.
X, and you are inferring what the organization of that course is going to be because of the tenant.
Yeah.
And you're not giving the user an option to change that.
Exactly. That's a restriction that we have. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay.
Yeah. At the moment, yeah, it's a restriction because it's a way that we have to basically associate and filter courses per organization.
So, when you set the organization, it's based on the domain when you create the course, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you're a super user, then you just switch to the right domain that you want to create the course under, right?
Sorry, can you?
If you're a super user, you can see all the tenants.
Yeah.
So when you create a course, you'd have to create it under the right domain. You couldn't.
No, in our yeah. No, in our customization, if you are a super user, you can set the organization. Yeah. In that case, you can. Any other question? Sure.
Have you looked into anything Django like add-ons provide that or even more recent versions of Django that can solve like some of the more fine-grained permissions problems?
No. No, you mean?
Well, like you said, the permissions are kind of simplistic.
Yeah.
In OpenEdX.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious if you've seen anything out there that might provide a framework to use that might provide some
Yeah.
better sets.
Yeah, we have seen different approaches. For example, for APIs, one thing that you can do if we are using Django REST framework, you can leverage some of the permissions in the Django REST framework permission classes. So that's one approach that we could use for APIs, for example. But no, for the platform itself, no, we didn't start to check anything. You have a question? Yeah.
In the multi-sites, when you define the domain for a particular site,
Yeah.
does that set the URL for both the LMS and the studio, or just the LMS?
No, it's just the LMS. The studio URL is shared by all the tenants. Yeah. Because microsites is not supported. Sorry, OpenEdX sites is not supported in Studio. In Studio, it's always the same URL. So that's we have that customization to link the users to the organizations, and we can retrieve it there. Any other question? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you, man.
Yeah, nice. Un gusto conocerte.
Un gusto. Está medio sudando.
¿Hace cuánto tiempo estás por acá?
¿En dónde?
En Montreal.
Ah, no, vine para la conferencia. Llegué el...
Es que estoy todo el día sábado también.
¿Eh?
Me quedo hasta el sábado por la noche.
Ah, yo me voy el sábado de mañana porque en realidad fui a... Algunos de nosotros de Epicenter están en Boston. Ajá. Entonces en realidad fui a Boston primero y vinimos en auto.
Oh, ¿en serio?
Sí, y me vuelvo con... ¿Eh? Fue divertido. Y me vuelvo... Justo me estoy volviendo con ellos el sábado de mañana. Pero ¿venís mañana al Project Day?
Ajá. Yeah, well, estoy aquí por la sesión.
You still have the microphone on.
¿Eh?
You still have the mic on.
Sorry.
It's about that credit card.
I completely forgot. Thank you.